What's up guys, this is Void Gaming, your channel for fresh Arena of Valor content. Recently I released the first ever video on this channel talking about top choices. In this case I was referring to my top 5 choices in the current meta, and I was talking about one hero for every single position. So we had a top laner, mid laner, jungler, marksman and a support tank roaming champion. In today's video I want to focus on a specific position, and I decided to do a top 3 ranking for the best 3 heroes that I think should be used in the current season, and I have picked Illumia, Liliana and Tulen as my top 3 choices. And in today's video I am going to talk about their equipment, and I am going to describe why I have picked those 3 mages over all the other mages that have been introduced to the game. And I made it plainly simple. So we've got Illumia, who is more sorts of a beginner hero. Then we've got Liliana, who is a little bit more advanced, and last but not least we've got Tulen, who I think is the more sophisticated hero. He's actually super strong right now, and once you have found out how his ultimate and the passive works, everything is actually not that difficult anymore. But I would say the easiest of those is Illumia, so we're going a little bit higher up in terms of how to use these heroes. And in addition to all these kind of theory things and the equipment choices, I have some best scenes with all the kills for those 3 respective heroes at the end of the video. So we've got crazy kills all over the place just to showcase how strong those heroes are in their game mode. So I would say let's get started with Illumia and her build first, and why I think Illumia is one of the top 3 choices right now to play as a mage. So first of all I want to talk about Illumia, a mage that has been under my radar for quite a while, and there have been a lot of buffs and nerfs and changes to that hero for, I would say, a period of about 2 years. And I was always wondering, why would you even think about touching a hero that isn't that good? I didn't really get the point why Teamy or Tencent or Infinite would kind of consider to do something about that hero, because in my mage landscape she didn't really play any kind of role. I barely played her, and I didn't really understand why people would play her. For me she was this kind of strange hero who has mediocre abilities, especially the first and the second one, with an ult which is a global one. So as soon as you fire it, there will be some marks on the battlefield where the enemy would stand at that point when the ultimate was launched, and you would deal damage revealing their position. So it was more some sort of utility ultimate, and it was there for kill stealing things off your team, and I was confused. I didn't really get it. So I started to play Illumia recently, and especially with the last gameplay that I had here, which I have to put on the channel because it was actually quite fun, I suddenly understood. And this is, I would say, because of the instant burst equipment that I want to talk about today, that you can already see here on my screen. So Illumia has a really strong setup right now. So when I was playing with one of my friends here on the Arena of Valor game, he was actually quite confused, and he was even telling me, like, when did she become so strong? Like, Void, you are dealing quite a lot of damage to the enemy heroes. Was that always the case? And I think it was always the case. I think I did just not play the right build with her. And with this instant burst build, you are able to deal tremendous amounts of damage to enemy heroes, especially the squishy ones, and especially in the laning phase against your opposing mage, in a really short duration of time. So her cooldown on her spells is actually fairly low. Not talking about the ult, obviously, but her first and her second ability have a really short cooldown, and she can upgrade them to have this kind of Nova that she is launching towards the enemies, which is kind of pushing them away. And paired with your second ability, it's actually quite reasonable that you can deal with melee characters, because you are going to push them away with your S2, then you're throwing a S1 in, and the next spell that you are going to put towards the enemies is an upgraded S1 that's going to push the enemies away from you, giving you twice the opportunity to get rid of them by some CC spell. And combining that with the equipment, enchantment, and arcana layout that you guys are seeing right now on this screen, she is actually able to deal a really good amount of damage, and that comes from Barry's Agony. We are trying to get the cooldown even lower with the flashy boots. We've got Tome of the Reaper here for all those healing shenanigans, and to deal with those, Diadem is actually a staple because it just boosts the damage of every single mage hero in the game. I think it is for 95% of those mage heroes out there a staple item that you should always consider to take at least at your third or fourth item. We've got Arctic Orb here. If things are actually getting a little bit too close, this is your go button to be invincible for 2 seconds, and then we're throwing in, of course, something to deal with magic resist items with the Staff of Null to reduce the magic resistance. In terms of the enchantment, as you can see, we're going with Sacred Beat, which is actually quite important to lower the cooldown on her ultimate. Her ultimate is not only a good measure to kind of detect where the enemies are actually playing on the battlefield because it's revealing them, but it's also really good on dealing damage in team fights, because as soon as the enemy team is clumped together, you have maximum chances to get a multiple amount of heroes with your ultimate, because you will have several layers of ultimate projectiles that are going to be unleashed on the battlefield. Combining that with the Holy Thunder and the Holy Verdict, we are boosting our damage in the Veda department in the enchantment section, and then we're going with Raging Inferno as well as Deadly Cloud to boost our damage even further. And that said, when we're taking a look at our Arcana, I'm going here with 10 times Violate to boost our damage and the magic penetration. Benevolence to have a little bit more health, because she's actually really squishy, and if she has already used her spells and flicker, there is not really that much that she can do against melee based heroes or even AD carries who have her in range, because she doesn't have any dash or something to escape. So I was going with a little bit more health here, and last but not least is Flurry to have not only magic penetration but also some attack speed, which is not really that important, but the magic penetration is. And this is Illumia, and basically her layout is, as I said, you're going to poke the enemies with your S1 and the upgraded S1. You're trying to get close to push them away with your S2, and you can also mix that up with your ultimate and use your S2 and then afterwards the ultimate, and then you're going in with another S1 to kind of pinpoint them at the point where they are actually standing, and this is going to inflict massive amounts of damage that might even one-shot them in one single combo. So she's really strong, and I think she's a really good pick for beginners to kind of maintain positioning, get an understanding on how the mechanics work, because she doesn't have great escape mechanisms. She really teaches you that positioning is key and that you need to have a little distance between you and the most dangerous enemies on the battlefield, and she's really good on doing so, and she's actually a really good choice in the current meta. So this was Illumia. Next one is Liliana. And I have already been talking about Liliana in my top 5 meta choices, because she is my meta choice if it comes to mages. That said, because Tulen is about to be nerfed in the current future because he is just so strong, so I thought let's focus on a hero that is strong already and who will not really receive a nerf in the upcoming hotfixes or the upcoming patches. So she's going to be solid eventually for the rest of the year, but at least for now she is plain solid, and she is a really good harass / mobility damage dealer, and that is a role where she really excels, because she has not only good crowd control with her human form, but she's also able to transform herself into a fox, giving her great melee damage. She's got this claw and bite attack where she's been ferocious all over the place, tooth and nails all over the enemies, which is also a good healing prospect if you take life gain or vampiric gain. And she also has another dash, transforming her back to human form if you are in fox form. So she's got great mobility, 2 times dashes when she is in fox form with CC in her human form, making her a really great engagement tool, as well as heaven measures to escape team fights when things are actually not going in your favor. And to build it up her build correctly, I was focusing on mainly damage here. As you can see, we've got little utility. The only utility that we've got is the Arctic Orb, and that's there if you are stuck in melee and you can't put the damage through and all the enemies are closing in. This is your 2-second invincibility pass that we've already seen on Illumia, so this is a really strong choice if you end up in melee. Rest of the build is tweaked around getting as much damage to the enemy faces as possible. As you can see, Boomstick is going to increase your range. You've got Apocalypse here in order to deal more damage, especially on the melee attacks, which are then quite strong. They are strong, but they become stronger with Apocalypse. Diadem, as I said, is going to boost every single mage hero, so of course we're going to take this in addition to the items that have been spoken about so far. And Staff of Null here to get some magic penetration resistance, also some magic resistance penetration. That's really good for. Rest of the enchantment is basically completely the same as I have shown on Illumia. The only change that we have is Axe of Sacrifice instead of Sacred Beat, because Axe of Sacrifice is boosting our damage by 3%, so making her even deadlier. And when we're talking about the Arcana, I've been picking 10 times Violate here, 10 times Devour, and 10 times Hex for some additional cooldown reduction. That's basically my staple build on most of the mages if I don't want to do something fancy or focus on cooldown reduction, but this is a really healthy build. So if you have unlocked all these Arcana, you can go with most of the mages with this build and not really feel sorry about it. So Liliana is a really good champion. The difficulty comes from switching between fox form and human form and to know when you should take either of those forms. So I would usually advise you to poke and harass as much as possible in the human form, and if you see that the health is dropping towards half of the enemy hero, especially in the laning phase, it's your signal to switch into the fox form. So what you're going to do is you try to pinpoint them with your S2, and then you're going into fox form, because then they are snared and you got the best possibility to go in and unleash havoc on the enemies with your fox abilities. And then most of the times the enemy should already be dead, and a good combo that you can always apply with her is you are switching into fox form, dashing into the enemy with your S2, which is actually something pretty cool, because while you are dashing you are invulnerable, so you can't be targeted by anything. Then you are going to activate the second step of your second ability, which is going to unleash some kind of beast bomb into the enemy, and as this is traversing quite slowly, you are then going immediately back into human form and snaring them with your S2 afterwards immediately, and securing the hit will also secure that the second ability from the fox form hits the enemy with full impact, dealing tremendous amounts of damage, more than 1000 damage dealt in just one hit. And on top of that comes all the stuff that you have already bought in terms of magic ability items, and this is really going to ruin the day of the enemy, making her a really great tool, especially against tanks. And she's super mobile, she's got great damage, she can be all over the place, she's able to get into fights quite easily and get out of fights quite easily as well, making her one of the top choices as a mage in the current meta. And last but not least is Tulen. In this case I have played him with the jungle talent, because Tulen and Liliana are both worth mentioning on being able to get into the jungle and be good in the jungle, which not many mages can, but Tulen and Liliana can do that definitely. Of course, the wave clear is at the beginning of the game not the best. The normal junglers have a better jungle game at the beginning of the game, but as soon as you get some kills, get some items, it becomes fairly easy to clear the jungle in no time. So yeah, those are the capabilities which make them even better, because it just means that you can use them to get blue buffs and stuff like that, even if you haven't equipped the jungle talent and you just want to invade the enemy jungle. But let's talk about Tulen and his setup. I'm playing him with what Arena of Valor calls instant burst as well. So as you can see, the layout is quite identical to the ones that we've talked about before. One of the most important things is that we're going with Rhea's Blessing and we're going with Evil Secrets, and I would always advise you to build the first step of the item before you finish the final item. It just makes your game a lot more enjoyable, because you can actually profit from the passive even if you haven't finished the item to the full build. And that said, Tulen is super mobile, he's got a lot of damage. You need to play him around his passive. His passive is the bread and butter, so you want to build up those stacks so that the passive procs and you're going to deal those lightning shocks towards enemies around you. That's going to deal a lot of damage. If you start playing Tulen, you will wonder why you're not really dealing that much damage, but the answer is you haven't mastered your passive. You should always go with your S2 first. This is the ability that you're going to level up at the beginning of the game. Then you're going with the S1, and then you are finishing it up with the ultimate whenever you have the level to get some ultimate stacks. And you want to jump through enemies using your S2. Then afterwards you want to fire an S1 immediately into them, so all of your 3 balls hit, because that should usually be enough to proc your passive, dealing additional damage. And if you're playing against a mage, that should already be enough to just land one single ultimate shot and the enemy should be dead. That's how Tulen works. That's his basic combo. S2, jump across the enemies or jump through them. S1 straight into their faces, and then already hit the ultimate button, because if they're trying to get away with flicker or something, you have already targeted them, your ultimate is about to fire, and even if they teleport out of your melee range, they will still get the full impact of the ultimate, because it's going to follow them, and that should be the death blow, the killing stroke, and this should basically deal with every single mage out there in the game. In terms of the enchantments, it's basically the same in the Veda as I have been talking about on Liliana. So we've got Acts of Sacrifice, Holy Verdict, and we've got Holy Thunder here to maximize our damage. And what I like to do with Tulen is to get another Arctic Orb with the enchantment here, as well as Gunslinger to boost our stats. And if we're taking a closer look on the Arcana setup, what I have taken is 10 times Violate, obviously to boost ability power and magic penetration, Devour to boost ability power and get some magic lifesteal, but this is not enough. You need Rhea's Blessing here and Flurry for some additional magic penetration, because this is going to be a lot more impactful on him, as you're going to have a lot of shots coming from your passive. You're going to electrocute the enemies with your passive, and magic penetration is key in order to use your passive in the very best way. So these were my 3 choices. I think Tulen is the most difficult one, because you really need to figure out how to use the passive. All the other spells are basically tweaked around getting the passive ready. I think Liliana is a little bit more difficult to play than Illumia, so she is in the middle, and Illumia is my hero that I would advise beginners to start with if you want to enter the mage game, and if you take all my build things and tips into consideration, that should already boost your beginner's game into new levels. I hope you guys liked today's video, so if you like this kind of content, give it a thumbs up, consider to subscribe, because there will be a lot more builds, tasks, things all around the different roles in the Arena of Valor series. And now at the end of the video, I've got some gameplay highlight moments for you, where I'm showcasing how strong those heroes were in about 1 minute for each hero. So let that sink, enjoy the video, and don't forget to hit the like button as soon as you watched it. So thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of today's video. Bye bye.
3, 2, 1, fight.